Hello, hello, happy Sunday. Hopefully your weekend has been going well so far. Mine's been pretty good. It's snowing again. Oh, and hi, Zilby. I did throw a bunch of toys for him this morning right before the stream, so I don't have them here. Well, I have the ones that you can see on top here. He's not super into those. I put some catnip down. Maybe he'll like that. Hi. Anyways, today we're going to be looking into state management with Yew because we need some way to have a centralized place to store all of our data and then pass those back and forth between different components that aren't related to each other. Are you done? Okay. So last time at the end of the stream on Thursday, we found two possible choices for ourselves, Yewdux and Bounce. And I think we want to try both of them, and I don't really have any reason to try one or the other yet, so I figure let's give one a shot, then we can rip it out and try the other, and see which ones we like the most. So we'll start with Yewdux here. Okay, so simple state management. Okay, so we're on 062070. Let's see. Let's actually go here and see what they've deployed as the latest version. So this is Yewdux, all one word. Uh, 070 is the latest version. Okay, so we need to add that in. I might as well just add it in this way. Okay, dispatch is the primary interface for Yewdux. It allows shared mutable access to global application state held in specialized agent-like containers called stores. Writing to shared state. Creating a dispatch is simple. Just give it a store type. Okay, so we create this basic store. Okay, so we create dispatch, give it a basic store type, which is just going to be a struct with a MyState. Okay, new. So we're going to do that, and my guess is we're going to do that in our lib. I'm actually going to create another file for this, which I'm going to call. I'm going to call this. Actually, I can create a folder for it. Store mod. is that way I can put both of these in here to sort of next to each other, and then we'll just like switch out which one we're actually using. Sorry, Zilby, I don't want to. It's uncomfortable sitting that way. He was sitting next to my chair, so I couldn't get back into position right in front of my computer. So I was doing this weird twisty thing, but that was not good for me. And I didn't want to roll over his tail, so I moved it slightly out of the way, and he didn't like that. Zilby, if you want to come back here, you can. I used to have a little heater pad. We put it upstairs underneath his nest for night, so when it gets cold. But I used to have it down here, and he just doesn't like to lie on it directly. He wants like things piled up on it, so he can't smell it or feel it or anything. Which is too bad, because it would be perfect for down here. He would probably love it, because it's not warm in the basement. All right, what are we doing? Where are we going? Okay, so we've got our store here, which means now we can come in, and this is going to be Yewdux. So I'm now going to mod Yewdux, and you need to be a public mod. All right, so it sounds like we need some kind of stay struct for this. So we're gonna have a pub struct. This is gonna be our app state. And in the short term, we wanted to hold like what the input from this text input is gonna be. So I'm just gonna put our text input, and we'll set that to be a string. And you need to implement clone and default. Caleb Dev, hello. Good morning. How's your Sunday going so far? And then we're going to use this dispatch from Yewdux. Now, most likely we're not going to do that here, are we? I guess we'll probably have like an init. It's like a pub function init. I don't think we need to take anything in, but we're going to return a dispatch. With an app state inside. Not that app. Okay, then this is, okay, so dispatch. Interesting. So two different types. So we have a basic store, and then that itself is going to have the app state. Your Sunday currently 2 hours behind you. Oh, you're on Monday now. Well, hopefully you're having a good Monday. Also, that sounds really late, like 2 a.m. Okay, then new. So that's not true. So then you are a dispatch basic store app state. Okay, so back to here in our constructor, or where we set this up. Let's figure out the next state. Mutating state is done through reduce. Here we immediately send a message to increment count by 1. So dispatch.reduce, and here's our struct here. So we take in a state. state.count plus equals 1. Okay. Time traveling. Yes, time traveling is so fun. Weird. Like I've always felt it's weird when you take like a flight, but you're only going like a small amount of distance, but just enough to cross a time boundary. And it's like, okay, I left at this time and I arrived earlier. Hi. We may also create callbacks that do the same. This button sends the message every time it is clicked. Okay, so this is... Okay, so we basically just create the reducer as a variable that then can be called when we want it to. Oh, and this can be used as an on-click action too. If the callback parameter is needed, it may be accessed using the star width variant. The following creates a new callback, then immediately calls it incrementing count by 5. Oh, okay, so we can basically call... Oh, add a second thing in here. Like, for example, a string from a text input. To read state, we need only a bridge to receive it. State is received when a bridge is created, and every time state is changed afterwards. Okay, so this is a traditional component here. Okay, so we have our dispatch that we're storing inside the component. And then, of course, the state for... Interesting. Storing a copy of the state, but it's an RC, so that's fine, in here too. Okay, so that creates our dispatch. Creates the interesting. So it creates a bridge state. State is our default here, which is going to be a none because it's an option. For update, if we match the message, which of course is going to be the state, so that's only one thing it could be, we then replace the state and then return true. Okay, simply give your component dispatch properties and wrap it with dispatch component wrapper. With dispatch and dispatch props must be used together or your app will panic. Okay, so struct my component. But that's still a struct component. I believe we saw somewhere in here that functional. Okay. Oh, we need to add Yewdux functional. Oh, but it's just going straight to the latest version. I'm not a huge fan of suggesting to do that right now. Like in code. As long as it's like not our Git branch. If it's somebody else's, like, oh, I don't know if I'd like that too much. So I would need to do something like this. Well, let's try. See, they have a couple. Try this one with the less boilerplate. Okay, so we need the dispatch props, properties, and the component wrapper. Okay, and this means we need a page component. So we need a new view. So we can do this with home. I kind of feel like I want to do this with like an alternate home. Let's do a new file in here, which I'm going to call home with Yewdux. Then I believe our router, we can now be aware of this one. Let's see, we have the route table. Okay, so I'm gonna call this one Yewdux. Let's see. Okay, so they're all just doing home right now. So I need to create in views, home with Yewdux. I need to create the struct-based component here. So I have a pub struct. Don't necessarily have anything to share with that right now. Impl component. All right, I know we have to set these, but right now I'm going to keep them empty. So this is just a self like that. How often do I deal with explicit lifetimes? You're trying to get back into Rest for like the 5th time. So pretty rarely. There's a couple times where I couldn't avoid the automatic deleted lifetimes. But for the most part, I found that, and this comes from hearing like several people who are smarter than me talk about lifetimes, which is if we find ourselves having to use them, we're fighting against the compiler, the borrow checker, and we probably should find a better way, even if that way includes doing things that we don't think are right, like cloning more often or doing something else, because that way, if we don't have to put lifetimes in, then we're making simpler code. And we should start there. You need to code differently because you're used to OOP and having references a lot. Exactly. And that's a huge thing of like, oh man, I can just like pass references of this class into this other class, replace with struct there. And oh man, that's gonna work just fine. And then it's like, oh, yeah, no, it's so unhappy with me. There are some advanced things you can do with like RC and refcell that allow you to not have references but have references. Basically, do exactly what you want to do, but that's also like very possible. But you need to get deeper into Rust before you get there, if that makes sense. So, long way to say, I try not to have to put lifetime stuff in unless I really have to. Okay, so let's do view. We're gonna do just an HTML. And I think we're gonna have just a div. And I'll probably just do something like an H1. Hello. Oh. Hello from Yewdux. Okay, you're happy. I'm not using these contexts, so understandable that you're not happy with that. Okay, now back to our router. I want to pull this in. So we're gonna say div. Actually, I don't even have to say div, do I? I just need to pull this in. Having done OOP for your entire life, it's a bit difficult to switch the way you think. I totally understand that, and that's that's probably going to be the biggest rough spot for learning this, is that it's a different paradigm of programming. Perhaps like, okay, so it's really interesting. I don't know what language, I can't remember what languages you've said you used in the past. But there's some languages that allow for any different paradigm. So like as much hate as JavaScript gets, one of the best parts about it, which also might be a big weakness too, is you can program any paradigm. You can program OOP. You can program functional. It all works. Simply because they have all the features for either of them in there. Not sure how to break the barrier and do it in a more rusty way. I would say, well, okay. Breaking the barrier is going to require a completely different way of thinking about your code. So I'll give you an example of what happened to me, and I don't have the code up anymore. Oh, C# more so than Python. Okay, C# and Python. Python, yeah, both those are pretty object-oriented languages. See if I can pull up a little whiteboard. I have a whiteboard right here. I should like get a camera or something that points to it, then I can draw on it. That would be pretty awesome instead of using a digital whiteboard, which is called Envision. Oh, fine. Hold on, give me a second. The main reason for the whiteboard is going to be to describe the problem that I was having and why the object-oriented way that I was doing stuff doesn't work. Also, trying to talk and type is not working for me. Hold on, give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, back to you. All right, let's create blank freehand. This is my whiteboarding software that I use. I don't have. Maybe I do. I have a very old Wacom tablet. I don't know if this is gonna work. Oh, this is the wrong side. Okay. Oh, that's a USB-C in it. Don't want to plug that in. I have like I need a USB like micro or mini or whatever that is to plug in to use it, and I don't have that plugged in. I think the cable is somewhere else. And of course, I've seen a lot of videos that talk about why functional is much better than OOP. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those too. There's a lot of things about those that I agree with, but I don't necessarily agree that that's the best way to like argue why you should like potentially change or not change. Ashkante, hello. It's better for certain things. Each language and technique has its niche. The trick is finding a good fit for the problem you're solving. Exactly, which is why I like really hesitate with the, oh, OOP sucks and you should never use OOP, or functional is the best way and you should only use functional programming and like, you know, go deep into that. It's great to have you here. You've been going through the ECS series and yeah, awesome. You know, so the ECS thing is actually where I started like really actually learning the proper functional programming part of Rust and like getting deeper into Rust because I needed to learn ECS to solve this problem. So let's, oh, my toolbar is down here. As you can see, it is completely unusable because I have this dark mode on, which unfortunately this would be all just pure white and would be like very bright. Okay, pencil, we'll do here, bright yellow. That's easy to see. Felt like your own fumbling generics in a borrow checker. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so generics, I've still had a rough time finding a good use case for generics. Every time I think that I found one, I then realize that I haven't, and actually just I don't really need generics. I'm still waiting patiently until I find like an actual problem in a real project that I'm working on where generics solves a problem. Well, solves a problem better than the non-generic way to solve the problem. That I think that's the key there, because otherwise I'm forcing it, and that's not a really good introduction to generics if I want to show that off. You can do a lot of generic free programming. Absolutely, yes. There was one person, my mentor actually was talking about generics recently and what he used. All right, so using relatively little known ECS library from your latest project and generics feel like a good fit for the paradigm. Oh, nice. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Okay, so I was basically making a game. I wanted to make a simulation that was similar to what is that? What is that called? It's there's a little game where you have like little circle things, and as you eat them, you get bigger. I always forget the name of this. It's not Agario. Agario. That's what it was. Agario. So imagine something like agar.io, which I don't remember if it's still around or not. But that was a fun game for a little while. So I was trying to make a like sort of something very similar to it. I had lots of little circles. I had some food hanging around, and then they were trying to eat each other. So what I did was I created a struct for each of these entities. So a struct for that guy. So we'll call this like, I mean, all I had was this. I guess I had food too, but was this entity. And so I had like a location. I put all the properties on here. So location, it's velocity. And then very object-oriented fashion, I also put collision detection and everything else. So like is alive. And then like eat. And like is colliding with. I need to like move it a little tiny bit to get the eye. Is colliding with. Okay, so these are methods that take in another entity. So it takes in essentially a self. Or a mutable reference to self, because here's the problem. When I ate somebody, you pass in, so you first check it. Okay, I'm colliding with them. If yes, go to eat, also pass in I don't know why. I always have biggest trouble drawing that. Mutable reference to a self. And then I want to, if I eat them, I gain. So I have like maybe my health or something. That was like my size. I gain health based on their health. And then I set there is alive to false. Okay. Without generics, you end up with that interface thing in Go, which is basically just void from C. I haven't worked with the Go or enough of C to like get that. But I know it's gonna be helpful. I just haven't done projects that need it yet. Okay, so this sets the stage. Like we had an entity that had all this stuff on it, but with some methods that take mutable reference to self in order to do stuff with. And then I stored every entity in a single vector with, so we have an entity, 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 entity. Okay. Well, here's a problem. I want to loop through all of these entities. So I start a loop. Now I'm looking at this one. And then for this one, I now need to loop through you and you and you to see first, am I colliding with you? And then second, if I am colliding with you, to choose which one has the higher amount of health, and then that one eats the other. Problem. I've given ownership to the loop for the vector, which means that all of these are owned by the vector. And so now if I try to give a mutable reference, because I'm already getting a mutable reference inside of the loop, to then do the eat and colliding and changing all of this stuff. Huge problem. Borrow checker is like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna work. So I try to break these out into multiple different loops where I do the is colliding with and I just have a reference to the other. And that kind of works. And then I have to have another vector with like the state changes. So I'm saying, okay, for now we have to have like an ID in here. And I say, okay, well now this ID, so now we'll have like some kind of entity that we're gonna say, okay, for this ID, this is gonna be the action that happens. So, you know, eat other, and then other ID. And by ID, it's probably like index of the position in the vector. But you can see that's starting to get really not great, not fun. I'm fighting against the borrow checker here. And then it just keeps on getting worse because now I need to delete them out of the vector because I don't want them hanging around to be part of this very expensive check with everything else algorithm here. And yeah, it's not getting too good. So eventually I got to the point where it just wasn't working. I was having like many loops, one after the other, all of them expensive. And finally, Danny Fritz, who on the channel, like a viewer here, suggested, hey, you can do this the way you want to, but it's going to be extremely painful and potentially will be very slow, and you're just going to hate your life. Or you can use a different data-driven architecture, which will require a huge refactor, but then it will make everything easy. And it'll just be super easy to do this, exactly what you want. fighting the borrow checker should be an Olympic sport. I feel like it practically is, isn't it? Also, hello, Epic Blarg. So, that's where I learned, hey, ECS solves this problem in Rust. Like, we don't need to worry about all this type of stuff. We're going to keep, instead of having like a single entity struct, which is very class based, we're going to break everything out into just arrays of data. So we're going to have an entity is now based upon a vertical of multiple vectors. So we're going to have an entity just goes down through here. And so now we have like maybe you're a location. So that means you have your X and your Y. And that's it. That's like maybe a little struct like that. X and Y. X and Y. X and Y. So this represents three, sorry, I had this wrong. X and Y. X and Y. There we go. This shows 3 entities. All of them with locations. And locations are just a single a vector of these. And now maybe we also have our health. So we have like 15, 30. Like maybe those, the big one that everybody avoids until they're big enough to take them on. You know, they got 200. And so now when I want to like make a change to say, hey, is colliding with, I just say, okay, give me position 1 of location, position 1 of like, you know, position 1 of location, and then look at all of these other ones. I'm just looking at one vector of here. But then when I make the state change of like, am I colliding with, I can just create another vector of the indexes and then just go through that. It becomes much cheaper, and I don't have to do quite as much work to sort of do all this stuff. And so that's called data oriented, which is very different than object oriented, where basically everything in the program is based around the data and then orienting everything else around that. And Rust is really good. Like the borrow checker, you will not get very many problems when you start doing data oriented programming in Rust. So does that help? Does that help at all? I'm hoping that explanation of like what the problem is, why I needed to switch over to that, and then it's been very helpful for me in just future coding because I now have this in my brain. So you push each bit of data to its own vector. Essentially, yes. So like the big idea is instead of storing all the data for an entity in a single struct, I have a vector that stores one piece of data for all the entities, all the things that need data. Sounds like a lot of X. It is. It absolutely is going to be a lot more Vex than you're ever going to be used to. And it's going to feel really weird. But I guess like the other thing to remember is that Rust is very good at optimizing the code. And it's not as bad as you might think. Data-oriented development roughly means develop in such a way to maximize performance due to how the computer works. Attempt to maximize cache locality, for instance. Yeah, and so that's another thing is like we're not trying to minimize amount of memory used whatsoever, but you are trying to make make the memory be as efficient as possible. And I know that Rust doesn't really bill itself as a systems language anymore, but a great definition that I heard from, I think it was Steve Klabnik, but I could be wrong there. It was somebody on the Rust core team at that time, was that systems languages means that the programming language is concerned with running as fast as possible. That's it. Like, that's the reason why it doesn't have a borrow check. Oh, sorry, that doesn't have a garbage collector. That's the reason why it does all this other stuff that makes compilation take longer. It's really concerned with running fast at execution time. And then of course safety comes later as next also. But that does require us to sort of think about, well, if we want to run as fast as possible, with aligns ourselves with what the compiler's goal is, we do have to potentially get rid of some of our desires to like minimize memory usage, minimize number of loops that we have. And it's okay. It's okay to have more loops if we run them faster. Now that being said, you can still run minimal memory and all that stuff with Rust. It's not like you can't. It's just more of this specific style of programming means that we're not focused on that. It's not the primary goal of our code. It could be a secondary or a tertiary goal, but it can't be the primary. I'm happy to like continue. What's a way to get around referencing things within an object? So one way that ECS does that is you don't have an object to reference. So instead of just saying an entity is represented by this struct, like here, you say an entity is actually is made up of many component parts that are each like associated by these arrays or vectors down here, completely breaking out what they are. So basically, more structs, more smaller enclosed data structures, and then you don't have to reference a thing in the object. You can go straight to the thing that you want to reference, if that makes sense. And then that way, what I'm doing is I'm storing just a location of where each of these things are, as opposed to the actual things themselves. So by an index rather than the actual reference. Exactly, yes. And then that way, for example, another way to do this is we could say, I want a, let's see, I don't know what it is in C#, but like a dictionary in Python. So we can have whatever our stores, like we'll have like our ID of maybe your locations. So you can have like maybe locations here. So it doesn't have to be all vectors. It could also be other data structures too. So let's say we have locations, you have an ID of the entity that you want to do it in, and then you have an XY struct. You can still use classes. Like your object though would be like a location for this ID that goes inside of here. And now you just pass in this specific thing. So one at a time, and you're passing around by ID. Now here you can see, like, I've done a lot of, I've been doing a lot of functional based stuff here, so I don't have to have any kind of like internal state. That's another thing is like in object-oriented programming, we often think of like state as part of each object that we're passing around and doing stuff. Like it has the methods and it has the state to mutate. So I should say it the opposite way around. It has its own in state, like its own internal like data that makes it whatever it is. And then it has the methods to get that data, set that data, mutate that data, and like maybe even check with other objects if it should do any of those things. How does the ID work in a vec if you need to remove something from the middle? Yes. So if you need to move something in the middle, that's where it gets really interesting. So in the ECS scenario, if let's say we just say, hey, you know what? This entity is dead. It is gone. You can, a couple ways we can deal with this. If we want its, if this is a game and we want its dead body to still show there, but we don't want the other thing there, we can just set this to a none and have these be options here. The other thing is to use a map. And a map would be another series of vectors here that basically tells us, okay, which of these are alive and which components they have that are active. And what I did in the course for ECS is a bit mapping trick where I basically say, okay, let's give a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it basically becomes a tombstone free slot for later. Yes, kind of, yeah. So I can basically say, okay, for entity 1, which represents this guy right here, location takes up this bit. It has one. So therefore, you are actually, you know what I should do? I should fill that in. You're active. Health is this one right here. You're active. But the rest of them are not active. And so if I had stored this as a, not as like an actual number, this becomes 1, 2, 3. Tombstone is an awesome term for that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. Maybe something over here doesn't have health, but it has whatever this is, which would then be 1, 2, 4, a 5. And then maybe this one's dead, so it's a 0. And then we're back to like 3, 2, 1. And then this is the tombstone. This is showing you that this entity is completely dead. Do not check it. And if a new one is created, go ahead and replace it. Just change its data. I realize I've used all one color for this, which means that if you weren't watching this be built slowly over time, this is going to be just a mess of lines that mean absolutely nothing. So sorry about that. What I was going to go to with this one here is and this is like where a lot of front-end developers sort of like know this but don't necessarily know why they do this, is all about like where to store state. So in React, for example, Redux is super popular, but I'm not sure that everybody knows why Redux is a good idea. And the base idea is that state stores in a single place. It's not like we now have 100 different objects, each with their own state and their own methods for manipulating that state. Now that state is in a single place. and completely ignoring like the benefits of data oriented design or anything else. If you think about where bugs happen in a code, and I don't have the proof for this. There was a white paper by some company which I forget, so this is not really helpful. But I do remember reading a while back that state changes is almost always where a bug is going to be found. And not only that, the state change is almost always where the nastiest bugs are going to be found. So more bugs around where state is, and the worst bugs around where state is. Therefore, you can't avoid state. Like, even if you have a purely functional language, you still have to have state somewhere. But if you centralize that state to a single part, like a single file or a folder with just a couple files, and then all of the mutations happen there and all of the state is stored there. Now, if you have a bug, you know the first place you should check where the state is. If it's not in there, it's probably some simple bug somewhere else. That's the idea of using of not doing object-oriented type state in here. Like, I could store state inside of this struct here, but we're going to do that elsewhere, and we're just going to reference the state of the big one over there elsewhere. I don't know if that's helpful. I think I sort of like word barfed all over all of you, so I'm sorry about that. It's where you learn more in streams than through incredibly expensive education. I learned this through working with very, very talented people. So yes, like education, doesn't matter how much education you have. Working in a real world will always teach you more than whatever education you have. Education just gives you a good building blocks, context. It should give you context for the real world. Okay, so let's get back to this. We are okay, so I'm creating this. I just want to see my hello from Yewdux showing it here. So we have our router here, which means I need to pull in. Pull in you, and then you are going to be this. That. Okay, and then you're going to be this /Yewdux. So if I come back to here, no route matched. I do want you to be Yewdux. You work with that. Okay, so you. So at. Okay, so localhost 8081. It is YEWUX. The task works, right? I can go to task. Yeah, okay, so task works. Did do the same all there. And you're going to be this Yewdux, okay. We're returning this. Do I need to do anything in here? Because it should do this switch. Also, I have it auto recompiling, so that should work. I can do one really quick change here. I'll just add. Yeah, okay, so we got the 3 there. So one would think I could do Yewdux. Oh, not YEW. There we go. Okay. So I have this struct here. I was doing YEDUX and not YEWDUX. Okay, so now that I have that struct, we can come back to here and figure this out. So I need to do, okay, my type properties is going to be this dispatch props basic store my state. Okay. So, okay, dispatch props. Okay, so dispatch props, and then that's going to be the basic store. And then in that, it's going to be the app state. This one. Okay. Then inside of the HTML, I have to wrap my component with this with dispatch. So in here, these divs, I guess, become with dispatch. It was more like make X than learning anything really. It's possible to learn with something like that, but it takes, you have to know how to learn. And ironically, schools are not very good at teaching how to learn. Okay, so I need to use, let's see, are you in here? With dispatch. Oh, that's weird. With dispatch, my component. I could have told myself to make X at home without spending the money you did. It can sometimes feel like that. Is that really how it works? This is also just sitting out here like this. That's outside of an impl. Like, is that? Okay, so that's outside of the impl component. So that's literally like right here. They have a with dispatch. I can't imagine that this is actually right. With then the component. Oh, with home with Yewdux. Like this. Oh, and it's HTML. Forgot that. Yeah, you're not happy at all because internet really opened up learning because we can find people who are sort of like-minded and understand what we're struggling with to grasp. Yes, and then also the internet allows researchers like from across different areas to like talk to each other, right? So there's a huge amount of education research like on how we learn, how all that stuff happens, like what goes on in our brain. And it's so strange that like we realize, oh, everything we've been doing where you like have a lecture is wrong. It doesn't work. Like everything I'm telling you will not stick unless you practice it. which is just unfortunate because then it's just a lecture and it's really just me learning. I'm the one who's learning, not you, unless you practice it. When you grew up, you had no one to brainstorm programming ideas with, which royally sucked. Oh yeah, I didn't get into programming probably because I didn't have any friends that programmed. Or if they were programming a lot, they weren't talking to me about it. So like I did some things with a TI-84 calculator. I built little things. And then I just didn't get into it because I didn't really have anybody to share that with or chat with or do anything else with. Or I got stuck on something and didn't know what to do. So I just like gave up. Internet does solve that. Okay, so I think this is not correct. Also, what I'm very like this is weird. The way this is, because now your component will receive updates to state. And it is my component. Oh, wait. Okay. With dispatch, I think this is talking about the parent. So not this component. We have to go into the router and do, right here. This is where with component, with dispatch goes. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like this, actually. But we'll find out. Maybe it is passed in the other way. Let's see if we can pull this in. Okay, that doesn't make you happier. Oh, missing generics. Okay, so this is... Oh, that's why it is. Okay, it's you. So that's what this is. Okay, so we're going to have with dispatch, which pulls in home with Yewdux. Now, I don't need this thing. It takes in these properties. And now context at props. Now okay, so I want to do context at props dot like a state. I always like to rename this to actually the full word. Okay, so we're gonna do let let's do like let our string what is it called? Let our that text input. So like the text input equals context dot props dot state. Can you tell me what you are? Okay, then I get access to it. So we go into our state here. We have this text input, which I bet you need to be public. Yeah, there it is. Okay, text input. And then I want to, let's just say, we'll have a p tag with text input here. So I don't need this with dispatch like that. I do need you to be divs though. Okay. What are you upset about? Whatever that was. Cannot move out of an RC. Type, oh, string. Okay, so I don't want to move this out, so we're gonna clone this, or I can take a reference to it. I don't actually know if I need to own it. I think this works. Okay, so this is okay. Now if I come back to you, you're fine. Let's come back here and give you a default. So you implement default. I'm going to implement this myself. Impl alt or app state. Okay, so I'm gonna say text input. You're gonna be let's see. Hello world. Pretty classic. And now I'm reading the property from the store. Okay. This is nice. Okay. Thing 2 to do. The second thing to do for this is we want to now set this via a reducer from the actual text input. So we come back to our home. Also, I'm gonna need a link into there. So let's see. Go to home. Nope, that was the wrong one. Here's our form input. I have 3 of these for, reasons. I don't actually need 3 of these. Okay, so that takes me to task just takes me to home because I don't really have a task. I can just get rid of you for right this second. There. Okay, so here we are with this. We have our form input. I want to type something in here. I want that to, when I change off of that, that updates the store. And then I want maybe to read the state over here as soon as it changes. Or I want to move to the other page. That might be a better one. So I need a link. This one takes me to the task, which doesn't exist anymore. So here, I need to go home. Okay, so route. You're gonna take me to home. You can go to Yewdux. Okay. I should actually name that Yewdux. We were talking to someone about this before. They said you could try out a purely functional language to possibly help you get used to it. Possibly. I know that works for some people. Sort of like diving into a language like Haskell and just like having fun with it. But I've also met people that would just be the most frustrating thing to do because you're it's basically like jumping into the deep end when you don't know how to swim, and hoping that makes you be able to swim, and maybe it will, but the other consideration is, will you now hate swimming for the rest of your life? So I would say be careful with that. You can try it, but be really quick to abandon that and maybe switch to a different way that could be more fun. Okay, so I go to here. We have this hello world, so I now want this to be whatever I put inside of here. Now currently in home, we have this on input callback where we're getting the value of this text input wrapper coming back out. So I want to now, instead of just logging this, I want to put this into the store. Okay, so we're going to do this dispatch, basic store, state there. I like the idea of doing functions for this, using the reduce callback. So we can do this reduce callback with. Okay, so here's my thought. I'm going to come to Yewdux here, and we have this like init function, which apparently I'm not using. So do I even need this? Doesn't even look like I need this. It's creating the store as soon as I use this. That's very interesting. I wonder if then... Okay, I'm gonna leave it there for right now. We're gonna have some reducers in here. So I'm gonna create the set text input reducer. You're gonna take in the new text input, which is gonna be a string. What could you try and do to ease out of OOP? I think to make it like choose a project and try. Well, let me think about this, because like it's not something I've had to help somebody get over, because when I was teaching people that were new to programming, and so I didn't have to didn't have that longer history of OOP to overcome. And for myself, how did I get over it? Oh, you know what? I don't know if I'm a good example for myself, because I started as a systems administrator. I started with programming Bash scripts and really basic C and Python, but so simple that I didn't need classes. It was just top to bottom, just do some simple things. It's a couple hundred lines at most. It's not really that bad. I would almost say, as a challenge, see if you could do some coding challenges or a very small project without inheritance. You can use classes. You can use everything else OOP. Just start without using inheritance. The reason why I would start there is, if I were in your position, is I want to break the habit of really trying to only have one copy of something. I would just say, okay, I'm gonna maybe also put up a piece of paper on a monitor, just tape it to the edge of the display and say it's okay to clone. It's okay to be inefficient. I give myself permission to have more, to duplicate data, because even if in the end you're not going to duplicate data, there's probably going to be some points in the middle that you are, and that might be a fear that I would have switching away. So I'd probably start with inheritance, moving away from that. And then the second thing, after I've got the inheritance thing, try moving methods from mutating state. Like try having just like a single mega object that holds all the state, and then there's no all the children objects don't actually mutate that. They just receive data in their constructors from on top, which is sort of like properties being passed down through like a tree of objects. That probably won't allow you to create a real working project. So it'll probably have to be just like a toy of something that you abandon in the middle. And then eventually you'll have to like, okay, I need to like update. How do I do that? There's a lot of problems coming in here. Fun Function had a really great introduction to functional programming series. Let me see if I can find that. I think it might have been like part of the composition. I think it was part of like a playlist. I know it was in here somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where. Game would be an example where you have a base entity or a base enemy object. Right. So basically, it's going to force you to not to be more generic with things and not have like a base enemy object or something else like that. So composition over inheritance is a video in which they talk about using functions that take in instances of things as opposed to something that has something else. In traditional computer science, that might be described as like something has a versus is a relationship. And in functional programming, it's moving everything from a has a to an is a, or back and forth. I forget which one's which. So I would see. I think they had a functional programming playlist. This might be it. Yeah, this one. I've recommended this one to so many students. I highly recommend this playlist. So here's a link to that. So you treat an object like a child type rather than it actually being one. You treat a object, so you have to pass around. You don't have access to like the parent stuff. So it's going to force you to use more functions outside of classes. So for example, take a look at this right here. I have this struct app state, and these functions are not actually implemented on app state. They're completely separate. That's something you can do too, is like you can create separate functions. Now, the problem in C# is that C# inherently is a object-oriented language. You correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't have a function just sort of living out on its own, like this, like Rust allows you to, or Python actually allows you to do that too. So C# might not be a good language to practice that in. OP probably will work with that a little bit easier. So basically, the entire idea here would be, instead of putting a function on here to like update the text input, what if you put, and this is not going to be something part of the Redux. This is just an example of like this more of compositions type thing. What if I had this like pub function, update text, and it takes two things in. It takes in the state, which would be an app state, which would be a mutable reference to an app state. And then it also takes like the text input, which would be a string. And I'm going to return the new app state, or I could just not return anything at all. And then here I can then say, okay, I want to take the state, text input, and set that equal to text input. This becomes a very small function, which then updates the app state, without this being associated with the app state whatsoever. There's a couple benefits from this. First of all, testing wise, this is taking in an app state, which means it doesn't actually need to be this app state. It could be anything that looks like an app state. So in this becomes very similar to the Liskov substitution principle from Solid, where if there's a trait that app state implements, I could then instead just say like, well, this is like impl some state like trait. So like if I had an app state trait, I could use that instead. Then when I go to do testing on this, I don't have to have post in this state. I could post in a test state or a mock state. And then of course, text input is like whatever I care to be. And then afterwards we can then just have this change. In some ways this style leads to dependency injection working really easily, and a lot easier than it does in object-oriented code, where you'd have to create a struct that wraps around whatever thing you're doing and then inject that way. Does that help? But yeah, I think you're gonna have to work with Python or JavaScript for your functional programming adventures. In this case, stores like centralized stores like Redux, and I'm assuming Yewdux kind of are suited towards functional programming too. We're going to see that, I think, in a second here. With the game example, would you have a flag or something on an entity to treat it differently, and how do you store them? So, excellent example. This is where I would probably go back to this and create a store the flags separately. So like maybe if we have something like let's say you want to track your dead entities. What if I just store dead entities and just have a list of IDs? These entities are dead, and then at the end of the update loop, I'm going to use this series of IDs and then go through all of my entities and delete them. Like actually just remove them from the game so they get removed from memory. And then I can empty out the dead entities again. That's probably what I would do. Let's see. Yeah, I think that works. And I've done that one before myself too. And it kind of like it's a one step towards ECS style as well. Oh, I see. Okay, so I need to create this and store it somewhere. You feel like if you can get over the OP mindset, you'll be able to learn Rust without major hassle? Yeah, possibly. So I guess the question is, do you want to use Rust to do that? I sort of feel that Rust doesn't necessarily help teach you that. It sort of just forces you to do that, or just keeps on slapping your wrist and is really painful. Languages that are like absolutely like have tutorials out there of like, here's how to do functional programming because we are functional. I've heard really good things from Scala, which is on the JVM, but don't let that scare you away, because Java on the JVM is one thing, but like these other languages on the JVM are usually like, actually some of them are pretty nice. And Scala I've heard some really good things about. So Scala might be a good sort of like educational language to go through, and there's some really good videos. My wife learned Scala, and she really enjoyed that. And it teaches you some of that stuff. Haskell, I don't know if Haskell has as good of a tutorial like how to get into Haskell series. If they do, then that would also be great. Oh, Haskell also uses whitespace like Python? Okay. I've not used Haskell. I've touched Scala a few times, but I've not used Haskell at all. There's a functional programming in JavaScript book, which I have not used, but I bought. And I don't have here with me. But I've been told it's good. But I don't know for certain, so I can't fully recommend that. Haskell is very popular with academia. Okay, that's true too. Yeah. Let's see. What else is there? There's I don't know off the top of my head. There is usually a bunch of people on like very like Denver Devs, the place, like one of the places that I hang out at for like, you know, just coding, like one of the coding chat room things. There's a great number of people who are very good at functional programming that I hang out that like I just love chatting with, because they have a lot of good information about that. You know, I think something to be careful with academia though is that sometimes they use terminology that is like very math oriented. And I do remember I was at a Rust meetup group, and somebody was saying that they're just going to keep on going with object-oriented programming because they don't have the time to learn all of the math in order to like do functional programming. And I would say that's just bullshit. Functional programming is like everything else. There's like the surface level that you can get a lot of benefit just from like the surface level of functional programming. You can go very deep and get extremely deep into like monads and all this other stuff, all these terms that you don't need to memorize in order to gain benefit from it. So here's what I recommend. Step 1, functional programming. Have your functions do one thing and one thing only. And have that function take in state, like take in everything that it needs to do, and it doesn't mutate anything outside of itself. There you go. That's my new answer of how to get started in functional programming. Start there. Have functions. Every function you create takes in information that it needs and does not mutate anything outside of itself. even methods on your classes, have them take in the information. So let me give an example. I'm going to create a, I'm going to just go outside to, where is it? Playground. I don't need this thing anymore. Okay, so let's say we have a pub struct, this game entity. So we have like a location. You think you briefly did functional programming in Python because you didn't know how to do OOP? That's possible. Yeah, if you're using functions and you're passing things in and out, you're not doing stuff outside of it, then yeah, that's probably OOP. Oh, sorry, that's probably functional programming, or at least like the beginnings of it. And it could be really awesome. Okay, so we have a location, and we'll just say that this is like a tuple of like, I don't know, F32, F32. Just trying to make this simple here. We'll have like pub health, which is gonna be an F32. Maybe we have like an is dead. Is gonna be a Boolean. Let's start with this. So I would say step one, let's stay with classes, and let's stay with methods and data attached to those classes. So we're gonna import entity here. But when we create something that updates our locations, let's say I also have a velocity. I want something that does move. So let's do pub function move. Probably not move. Maybe we'll do like update location. This takes in a mutable reference to self because I need self for this. But I would also take in the location, which is this F32, F32. And I'm gonna take in a velocity, which is, in this case, we can still say it's a reference to F32. The reference in F32, F32. And I'm going to return a new F32, F32, a new location. To make this a little bit easier, I'm gonna create a new struct here called a vector. Just gonna have an X, 32, and a Y, F32. And so now every time, here you can be public. Every time I use this, you are a vector. You are a vector. So you take in a vector. You take ownership of this vector. You take in a reference to a vector, and you return a new vector. And this is where the big difference in object-oriented comes in, is because I'm not mutating this in place. I am replacing it every frame. And that's fine. It's going to be okay. Or make a tuple struct. No, I'm going to do it this one because that way I can use this vector to show the differences between when we do the reference. Okay, so the update here. We're going to say, I'm going to create a brand new one. So let new location is going to be a new vector that has x is going to be location.x plus velocity.x. Y is going to be location.y plus velocity.y. And then let's just return new location. In some main program, I'm going to create my entity. So let's have my entity equals, you're gonna have to be mutable. You don't have to, you do have to be mutable here. Okay, so we're gonna have our, let's do Pac-Man. Do Pac-Man. We'll call this Pac-Man entity. Can be equal to a new entity. So you're gonna have a location, and the vector can be this vector. Let's just say like 10.0, 10.0. Velocity is a vector of like maybe 11.0. Y is going to be 12.0. We have health, which is 10.0, and we have is dead, false. I think I did that correctly. Okay, so now I have my Pac-Man vector, and if I want to update its location, I'm going to run this method that's on it. So in our loop, so we're just going to say in update loop, we're going to do Pac-Man dot update location, but we have to now pass in Pac-Man's information, which is going to be a problem here. Like Rust is not going to be happy with us, is it? Because we can't actually pass in a mutable version of this, except I can clone like that specific vector out as well, because I'm going to give ownership of it out here, and I'm going to return a brand new one. And I don't necessarily need to pass in like this, like a reference to itself. So in order to solve this problem in Rust, I either need to pull these out of the entity itself, or I need to, let's see, have this not even be a, probably do something like, let's Pac-Man location equals Pac-Man dot location, and we have to clone it, which you're going to be upset about because you need to implement clone now. So this is like step one. It feels really bad. It feels like a lot of extra coding, but it will work. Now in other languages, you can totally do this. You can totally pass it references to itself, because there is no borrow checker. It will be very happy with you saying, okay, fine, here you go. Here's like a reference to your own velocity. Here's a copy of your own location. That'll be fine to do in like Python. Here, of course, I can't do that. So I have to like pull it out first, which is maybe a hint at like, okay, if I want to do the functional programming style in Rust, I can't store this in the entity because of this problem. So it's a hint that it's only step one. It's not going to be the end. It's just step one. Okay, so then let our velocity, which now we're just gonna say, you know what? You're gonna have to be a, you're gonna have to be this also. So we're gonna say pacman dot velocity, clone that. And now we're going to update this and pass in a location and a velocity. Now you return back, let the new location is equal to this, because you give us that back. And now I can go pacman dot location is equal to the new location. So a lot extra typing to do, but that's sort of like the first pieces of it. Now you can imagine if I stored locations and velocities in a completely different struct, then the first part is get that information, then figure out what the update's going to be through this method, then update the main data again. And that's really like the pattern that goes here is grab information from wherever storage it is in, manipulate it, and then restore it. That's it. Does that help? I probably should have done this in Python to sort of like show off how it could be done there. That's what my step 1 would be. And so looking at this, I'm trying to figure out like where do I store? Is this mainly ownership thing? Yeah, so in Rust, because of the ownership thing, I can't do like the object-oriented style that I want to do if I have things passing into each other constantly and dealing with that. So there's more work that needs to be done to switch over to a more functional style. Maybe one of these days I'll go over and I'll do the functional programming book. I'll read that. Maybe we can like do a chat about it, because it's something that I want to help my coworkers and my day job get better at, is functional programming, because a lot of them have just like pure object-oriented histories and backgrounds as well, and it's like they're intrigued by it, but it's like, how do you get into it? As you know, Caleb, it's tough. It's not easy. I think it's worth it though. Let's see. So I need this dispatch in order to do a dot here. So I can either do a wrapper for this store to have access to this, but we need this init that gives us a dispatch and then probably pass that in. Which I don't know what you are. It's a difficult switch like a diet. Absolutely. Learning a new paradigm is always tough, but it is possible. So I need you to be a type dispatch, I think. Oh, a dispatch with this type in here. So you're a basic store, app state. And then in here, I can now do dispatch dot reduce callback with. Okay, so you're going to take in the state and then whatever that is. Okay, so state. And then my other thing, which is whatever I feel like. No, I don't need to do this dispatch with. I'm setting this. I just need to use a reduce callback. So I have app state here, and now I want to return. I just wanted to do this thing. So now I can update state. So state dot text input equals text input. Type annotations needed on you. So that's type F. Oh, and then there's an R and E. Oh, because, okay, the reduce callback returns a callback. Oh, okay, I got it. So I probably do want a with. I don't take in the text input here. And I want to return this function. It's gonna be a long journey, but hopefully it's one that's really rewarding and like moves your career, your skills, your life, whatever, ahead and forward. That's the hope always. Okay, so mismatch types found. Okay, so it's an enum u callback. So this is what I want to say the return is. It's not Yalk. Hello. Oh yeah, to functional programming. Yeah. Well, then functional programming. I think one of the really cool things about functional programming is that you can combine it. I really personally, I feel that functional programming's greatest benefit is when it's combined with object-oriented programming. So when you have like a little bit of both, then you get to have the best of both worlds without any of the negatives of either. And therefore it's pretty awesome when you get into that way. You can basically pick and choose whichever paradigm makes the most sense for the problem that you have at that moment. Oh, read it backwards. Clay taunts. Oh, it's Clayton. Okay. My brain was breaking trying to read that backwards. I'm sorry about that. Clayton, hello. Not fully backwards. I think that's what it is. The its is on the front is correct, and then it's reversed. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna return. So this returns a callback. You're upset still. Closer expected. Oh, right. 2 arguments. So now you're going to take in this thing, which is going to be the text input, which is a string. Then you set them there. Now you return. Okay, so you need to be a string here. Okay. So this is a really interesting pattern. I remember I learned this when I was trying to create a infinite recursive loop that didn't break the stack. And I was like, how do you do this? And I did some Googling and I found a computer science webpage that basically talked about debouncing, or no, bounce? Trampolining. That talked about trampoline. You need to trampoline your function. I'm like, what the? So I sat down with a couple people, and we're like, okay, we didn't want to learn this, and we read some articles, and we found that basically we create a function that takes in stuff, and it returns another function that then actually like then uses that, and then this now is like separating things from the stack. And there's some interesting thing that going on behind the scenes in memory that you don't really need to worry about. But I can now use this in multiple places. And it's going to update the state here. And I've defined it here. So this is a really cool pattern to use. I'm glad they've set this up here for us. Let's see. You've been a Node Reactive developer for 5 years, and you're really considering switching to Rust. I find that after like a lot of web development, Rust is really is fun. To stop a Stack Overflow, yeah, this does. This definitely can be used in that way. It won't stop any of the other problems with like recursive, so it won't like solve the recursive problem with what's that algorithm that's like super bad with recursive that everybody uses. Fibonacci sequence. It's not good for Fibonacci sequence in recursive, but it is good for other things. Okay, so this can also be used for asynchronous type programming too. All right, so now I do need an init here because I need the dispatch to pass in to then create this function. And then we're going to call this. Okay, so if I need the dispatch, I need to store that somewhere. Can I store it in here? If I do, I don't have access to it anymore, do I? Although I have this browser router, can I get away with doing the with dispatch up here? Because then there's things on the context. Or properties. Oh, that would be the properties be set in too. Render, you take in this function. Goes to switch. Can I add in a second thing here? Yeah, it only expected one argument. Found two. So this switch render function, I'm not allowed to do multiple things. So which is a little bit, it's too bad. Where am I going to put this state? Because I need to put not that one, or maybe this one. So I need to run init to get the dispatch. And then we can call like the sets, and we can get the gets. In our home to read the Yewdux, where do you get this from? Okay, so you're getting this from the props on a router. You're doing this with dispatch. And so I'm passing that into you. I can put the router. So I can put the router inside the main library, which would give me access to it outside of the scope of these things. I don't seem to be able to wrap this with anything else. I'm really surprised I can't. Oh wait, is it this is fine if I add something else in. It's you who don't, because this render expects just a single function, doesn't it? Render, okay, that impulse something that can turn into a render function, which takes a single thing. Which then has to be the switch props builder. Okay. Or the switch props. Which is why we have this thing, routable. And I don't think I can pass it. Okay, so this won't let me pass anything here. I can create maybe a router that returns this function, then that calls it, but that seems, that won't work either. Let's see, where do you suggest we put this? Because so far they haven't showed where. Oh, they did show. So we have our my state. Oh wait, no, that's not the right thing. Found a tutorial overview for Haskell that looks like it was written for children. Perfect for you because you feel like it's harder to learn as you get older. I can see that. Something like one of the reasons why I do this stream is because I've noticed that the more I put myself into like these situations where I'm like, what am I doing? The easier to get some sort of like staves off that, you know, getting harder to learn. So just like keeping myself uncomfortable all the time is kind of a goal now for myself. Okay, so here we have our component and we store the dispatch inside of it. So the okay. So I can create the dispatch in here, but we have the same exact problem from before. I don't know a way to create that. Like, where do I store this app state? I could store it in here. I could store. Oh, naming these both app state is probably not technically the right thing, but I could store the dispatch inside of here. Then how do I pass something through, that becomes the problem then. You want to blame the pandemic because you have little exposure to the outside world and your days become identical? I feel you on that one. It's been rough. It's been really rough. Trying to like set up the right habits and keep those going has been what I've been focusing on. Okay. I need to be able to create this and like pass it in somewhere else. So this is one. I need to get past this sort of like, as I said on Thursday, it's like a river that I need to ford to pass this data back and forth. So I can put the dispatch here, store it in there, but now everything on the other side of the switch won't see it. Unless there's somehow for me to store stuff in the context to be able to access it through everything else. Context provide a way to share data between components without passing them down explicitly as props. They make data available to all components in the tree. So doing this in the top level would be helpful. In order to use component context, we need to struct, which defines what data is to be passed. For the above use case, consider the following struct. Okay, so this would be, we'd create a struct. It's nothing special. A context provider is required to consume the context. Context provider, T must implement clone and partial equal. Context provider is the component whose children will have the context available to them. The children are re-rendered when the context changes. It says consuming context. How do I set it? The scope context method is used to consume context and struct components. Okay. So that's where I don't see a scope method in here. Am I missing that? Use context hooks used to consume context, but wait. Where did they set it? Oh, context provider. Okay, so that's where it's set. So I need to use a context provider in here maybe. So like we have a browser router, so I almost need like a context provider here. Like that. Which I think is that part of Prelude? Missing generics. Okay, so it needs a generics. So, okay, so then I'm going to put in here. Now I need to create a struct. So I'm going to do it right here, right now, because I don't know a better way to place it. We're going to have a struct. I guess this is going to be the, I don't know if I want to do it like app context. Maybe we'll just call this the store. And then we'll have this be dispatch is stored here. The basic store with the, that one. Which now I need to change this. Okay, you can't be app state anymore. You're now gonna have to be the Yewdux app state. Okay. So now that I have that, I have 3 errors still, but that's down here. So now you are going to be the Yewdux. Wait, no. You're going to be the store. Oh, this closing tag has no corresponding opening tag. How does that work? What? So you want this to be something like that? Wait a second. Context provider. I need to see how that works. Which you didn't show. Not necessarily seen anything with context in here. Yeah, you don't have a context like that. Okay, so GitHub search time. Search for that in this repository. Specifically, I'm going to be looking for, okay, so in the theme section, it shows this. So we do a context provider theme context equals. Wait a second. Okay, can I go there? Oh, and then, okay, then you can close context provider. Okay. So then it is going to be here, context provider, but I have to give it that it's the type for the store again. Then you're happy. Now you are upset because I need to give it this context equals, and then it looks like an anonymous struct. No, that's a block. Okay, context equals. Context equals and then a little bit of code. Okay, so then we can put the code in here, and that's going to be... They use this thing to pass in the foreground and background. And they clone that. So I need to set this to whatever the theme is going to be. So that dispatch, or really, it's going to be the store. Is it going to be the store? Yeah. That store equals store with the dispatch, and that's going to be the init function from here. And then I want to store you in here. Unexpected end of input, because this. The method context exists for struct, but its straight bounds were not satisfied. Okay, it needs clone and partial equal. And they mentioned that before. So back to, here, you need to derive clone and partial equal. And no errors anymore. Okay. So now, so the init method has now been called. So now you're happy. Now we need this set text input. This is here, which means theoretically inside of here I can pull this in. So let me see if I can do it inside of this method here. So we're gonna do this as a multi-line method. Let let's see, set text input equals set text input. I need the dispatch, okay? Which means I need the context. There was like a use context, right? Yeah, okay, use context, give it the type. Okay, so use context. There it is. Give it the type, which is that store. It's an option, so we unwrap you. Okay, so now I have that store. Then I think I read that it was an RC, so I should be fine with cloning that. I don't think it implements copy. I wonder how that's going to work. Okay, so here we have so I need to get that set text input. So hold on. I need that. Set text input reducer equal to set text input. Pass it context. That's going to be the context dot. router's now upset. Why are you upset? No? Wait, what's going on? Library is not set. Okay, so that's fine. Dot dispatch. Okay, not upset. That gives us this callback now. So I can now run this. Can I do that in here? Set text input reducer. Oh, can I not call this directly because it's a callback? How do I use that reducer? So that gives me this CB. Oh, then I do CB dot emit. Okay, so dot emit. And then the new value, which is going to be this value here. Closure may outlive the current function, but it borrows set text input. Okay, so let's move. Okay, callback, take ownership of this reducer. Because I'm creating a new one every time that this runs, that should be fine. And then you should emit up to take that. Okay. Now back to the router where you're doing with dispatch here. And then we do this home with Yewdux, which is home with Yewdux. Wait, where did that come from? Oh, right, the new component. Okay, so first of all, I want to just try this. Danny Depresso, hello. It's going well. How are you? Oh, out of memory error. That's always fun. I get that a lot with this type of stuff. I just have to restart, open up a new tab, and everything works again. Okay, so if I just say hello, yeah, hello with lots of L's. Exit out of here. That's interesting. And then we go to Yewdux. And it's now reading from that store. Okay. It's not too bad. So now we've got the equivalent of Redux set up in Yew. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think it's okay. You've been struggling with Mongo today. Oh, it's been a long time since I've used Mongo. I have fond memories of it though. I still use Postgres more often recently though. More specifically, GridFS. Oh, I never used GridFS. I never had anything to store with it, so I just sort of was like, oh, interesting. I bet that would be fun, and then never touched it. So I don't know if I could help you with that. But okay. So if I come back, I go back again. Let's put a button back so we can just keep on. Keep on. Then trying to upload images for an API you're planning. This is just Petzl. Petzl's What channel is it? It is where it's in the electronica. Sometimes I find it hard to like figure out what I'm actually listening to. That jumped. That what? Yeah, it's somewhere in this list. Oh, it's EDM. I'm listening to the EDM channel today. Okay. In Yewdux, let's create a button to go back to home. Which, if we go to just home, I essentially want this link wrapper. We're going to go to home with Yewdux, and we're going to throw you in here. Which means we need link wrapper. So what are you? You are our components, atomic, link wrapper, to internal. Okay, we need the router. And that's that. Okay. Now, I can go to Yewdux and, oh, you know what? I should probably not go back to Yewdux from Yewdux. I should probably go home from Yewdux. Be helpful. Okay, so we initialize the store at this hello world. Okay, so coming back to here, and we have just something else. Now we have something else. So the store is working. We can now verify that it actually is doing the thing. So it worked. Excellent. Now we have these warnings popping up. The ID of the handler, 1, while present in the slab, is not associated with a callback. ID of handler does not exist in the slab, 3. I don't know what that means. Is it meant to overwrite the old one? I mean, I think that's what I'm doing. Now that being said, these are all beta products, so that might be just like a log that's basically just for themselves, and it will be cleaned up when release comes out. Basically, in Yewdux here, we have this callback that's running, and when we emit, it goes up and like updates this. And that's where we see this happening. The order of these is interesting too. 1, 3, 2. That's interesting as well, but I don't know if it matters as much. Yeah. So it's are you familiar with Redux or any of the state management tools for front-end frameworks? It's very similar to that. I'm just basically taking this and completely overwriting it with this special setter that I'm trampolining out. Or bouncing out? I can never remember what the I think it's trampolining. Okay. So now, is there any cleanup that I would want to do? You've done a bit of Angular, now you're getting into Mern. That's React, right? Still very much a beginner. Oh, you're talking about Angular 1. Okay, yeah, so this is this type of thing. So this is Rust code. And Rust is very different than JavaScript on the front end. Mainly the fact that it requires you to do a lot of stuff to prevent error, like memory errors. JavaScript also won't let you do memory errors, but it also won't let you do a lot of other stuff either. This sort of like doesn't have a garbage collector, unlike JavaScript. So because of it, there's some considerations to deal with. That being said, it looks very object-oriented, or it kind of does, doesn't it? But there is some differences here. So for example, I have this, the equivalent of a class that is storing the store, like the idea of a store in here. In Angular, you can imagine this as creating a single component at the top level that just stores all the state. And we're not going to store anything in the individual components. But then we have these functions down here that I technically have outside of the class. And what that means is this takes in, uses dependency injection to take in what it needs to do to then execute and manipulate things. So it might look like object-oriented to begin with, but it is functioning differently. Also, it is very possible to write object-oriented style code in Rust, but with a huge caveat that you can't do inheritance with Rust. Just doesn't work. Will make you hate your life and force you to learn a new paradigm. Okay. So I like this one so far. Okay, so I don't need this dispatch in here. We have this starting value. Now, if I want, okay, so another sort of like interesting thing here. We have this form input, and it's resetting to nothing whenever I set this in. What if I want the value of this to be set to something? Can I do that? Right now, in my router, I'm using this with dispatch here. I wonder if I can go up one level, but probably I don't want to do that. I probably would want to do something like this. We're going to do another with dispatch. Now, dispatch props is not satisfied. View component. You home with Redux. Oh, because you need to be this type of component. Oh yeah. To get the properties? No, because we have properties the other ones. Are these dispatch properties? Okay, so can I fix this? You're yelling at me because home doesn't take in the dispatch properties like we do here. So I want to take in this exact thing. Go to home and say, hey, home, you have props. And they are this. Which means you need the Yewdux app state in here. Expected reference to a properties type. Right, okay, so now I need to go into Yewdux here. Can I make you a properties type. Yes, in here, but okay, partial equal needed. Okay, you're happy again. Home is happy. Router's not happy because unresolved import. I didn't change you at all. Okay, home. Oh, you're unhappy again. Okay. Oh, I looked at that one and not this one. Okay. What are you upset about? Expected reference to a properties type. Okay, so I thought you were a properties type unless it's this thing is not a properties type. Okay, so that's gonna be now it looks like they're doing they're setting something up here for functional components, but in dependencies you need to pull in Yewdux functional. Just because I want to do due diligence, is the Yewdux functional is 0.1 here. Oh, they're on significantly later. Let's see. Oh no, I am not messing around. No, this is all. Let's see. Versions. Here, I'll show you the versions of what I'm pulling in. The framework that I'm working on, 0.19. Stylus, the styling framework, 0.10. Yew router, 0.16. Let's see. Yewdux, the big thing that I'm working on is 0.7. Yewdux functional is still on 0.1 here, but if I go to their repository, they have Yewdux functional in here. Version 0.1. Okay, that's the latest. Not super happy about that being officially in here. What's the advantage of using Yew over a fast JavaScript framework like Svelte? So the advantage of using something like Yew right now, like at this moment, is you want to learn and use Rust for programming front-end websites. Unfortunately, there's if it's something like, if it's gonna be for a production system that you cannot have any bugs in, that you want people to like fix as soon as it has a problem, I don't think you can use this. But if you want to learn Rust and you want to learn if you want to learn Rust and you want to use a framework that uses a lot of WebAssembly behind the scenes, then something like Yew is really good. And it is fast, and it is capable of doing all the things you want to do, even if you have to sort of like reach around to documentation that is not the best, and you got all the rough spots of like a new framework happening there. If you want to sort of like learn and see what's coming up and try Rust things out with web development, then yeah, I think it's great. So I would probably leave Yew as a learning exercise, but also kind of a fun alternate web programming. Svelte is one of those, you want to build a business on it, go ahead. It's solid. And it's lightning fast too. I've not used it myself, but I've heard of many people running businesses using it, and it's getting popular for a reason. Okay. So the problem here is that I can't do this. I can't do this without using some class-based components, like the equivalent of class-based components versus functional components. And since you're just starting to get into React, you'll probably run into that too, where in React they have functional components versus class-based components, and the functional components are like the new are they new anymore? They may not be new anymore. Now they're like the thing that most people prefer to go to, along with like use state. Unless everything's changing again and I've just not been paying attention. Possibly. So I would need to now write everything in a class-based component if I want to access the store. That's the negative to this. I think that's probably something really important to note down. So I can't do this at all. You're gonna have to stay here. I could easy 90%, 10%, yeah. You know you're gonna spend most of your time in a back end of your project, then you'll worry about the front end. I could see it all being opposite too. It can be helpful to build out front end first to sort of understand how the data is going to be used, and then the back end becomes easy, and you don't have to refactor it when you go to the front end. Okay, so I think I'm gonna head back to the README. Where do I want to put this? Okay, so we're gonna bring in the router. State management. So there is Yewdux. It's gonna have to be like class-based or struct-based. Struct-based components only if you want to access the state, which is going to be kind of important there. So I would need to convert the home component to a struct-based. Now, everything underneath there could still be a functional component, which would be fine. There's one more, but I don't have time to go through it today. There's one more that we can look into, which is going to be Bounce. Oh, and there's also Recoil. Never mind. Recoil is a React one, not for you. Okay. It's inspired by a recoil. Okay, so it's inspired redirects and recoil. Never mind. Are you... Okay, Cargo Tomo, you are Rust. I do have a Discord. Let's see. Dang, Discord. I haven't really been... Well, did that. Okay, hold on. Thank you, Nightbot, for being so fast in response to that chat message. Cool. Yes, that's what I've got. It really made me think it was broken for a second. Okay, so state changes in all clones. Okay, so Bounce wants to be a state management library that has minimal boilerplate. Only notifies relevant subscribers. That could be good. This one works with a functional component. That's important. So a bounce root must be registered. So you put this at the top level. So that's really nice, is that you have this in the app too. A simple state is called an atom. You can derive atom from any struct that implements partial equal and default. Okay. Nice. You can then use it with the use atom hook. Okay, so this brings in hooks into Yew. So already I'm kind of liking this a little bit more, just looking at it. When an atom is first used, it'll be initialized with its default value. Okay, that makes sense. So here's a function component setter. We have this use atom. Okay, the username. So that's just part of the state. Oh yeah, so here. So like that. Okay. So we get the username. We, on text input, take this username and clone it and shadow that back again. And then we can use that inside. Okay, when we get the input event, we could then set on this. We call set on it. But on here, on value, we can do inner to string to get the value out. Okay, not bad. I don't know, maybe I will be able to do this really fast. Let's see. See if we can find bounce in here. This is 0.2 version. So it's also very new. Okay, so what I wanted to do, we're going to, nope, not that. That. We're going to find our store mod. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file. And we're going to name this bounce. Okay, so we're gonna have a pub. Well, no, we need to tell you first. Okay, so we're gonna have a pub struct. We're gonna call this the bounce store, maybe. And we're gonna do the same thing, text input. the derive. What was this? Partial equal atom and default. So default, partial equal, and atom. Okay. Then I need this bounce root at the top level, which can go in here. I wonder if I can get away with this. Do like a bounce root. No, you don't know how to find it? Okay. There's bounce root. 2 errors right now. Oh, with this batch, yes. We have to go back to normal. Okay, no errors right now. Then it sounds like it's gonna be as simple as we're gonna use this use atom to get access to it. Okay, so in home, we're gonna use the use atom. Okay, so we're using the context there. Do this one. Now they're calling this just username. I'm gonna call this the atom store. Sorry, the bounce store. Equals use atom. Then we give it the type. Bounce store. Then we need to grab. So that gives us that entire thing. We then grab, we clone it. Interesting. Okay, so this is the entire struct, which we see is, oh, because you have this inner. Oh, okay. So you're gonna have lots of different things. So okay, so slightly different structure here. In bounce here, instead of bounce store like that, we would have like text input. And then you become inner. I wonder if I can do like inner, then have that be a full function, but I don't know if I would want that. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Back to home. So you're gonna be text input like that. Okay, so our text input, we get that, we clone it. Which then, why can't I just clone it off here? That gives us this use atom handle, text input. I own it. So in this move here, so we've emitted this value. I want to emit it again, which means I need to clone you. And now we're gonna do bounce text input dot. Are you set? You're set value. Type annotations. You're a string. Oh, okay. So hold on. Username.set. Oh, and I do an entire new struct. So I have to set a new struct on this. Okay. So you should be figuring out your stuff, but this is so entertaining and relaxing. Well, thank you. I try to be of some value, even if it is just entertaining and relaxing. Okay, so then this is gonna be, I created a brand new one again. So this is gonna be a text input with inner. Wrong one. I just pulled in the wrong thing. I want that one. Oh no, that is that right one. Text input. With an inner string. Okay. Now you become that. Oh, it's private. Okay, so you need to be public. Or I need some kind of setter for this. Or a constructor. Okay, so that sets it. No errors so far. And then the getter for it is we're going to do the same thing over. Let's just do this home and Yewdux. Yay! That actually no. I want a new view. So this is going to be home with bounce. We're going to create a function component. So pub function home with bounce. Okay, so we've got that. I want to tell you that you are a functional component. So function component, this is home with bounce. Okay. Don't know why that's saying it's not needed. It should be there. Pope Pontus rated with a party of 4. Welcome everybody, and Pope. How y'all doing? How y'all doing today? And Pope, how was your stream? What were you working on today? Of course, I'm assuming you've now gotten through the advertisement. Went well. You were making your chatbot build models from chat messages. Oh, nice. Are you using Rust or what language are you using for your chatbot? And are also using like from scratch, where you're like using an IRC to like grab chat from Twitch or something else? Because like chatbots are always fun to make. Jim Fike, hello. You're a total noob and beginner at Rust. Well, welcome. Rust is. I hope that it's fun for you. It's fun for me. You're meant to mimic the chat room. JS Node. Okay, awesome. And you're using the IRC client available. Oh, nice. Yeah, I know that there is a Alka who streams creates or co-creates, I can't remember, a very popular library in Node for creating chatbots. Oh, you're using OpenAI's GPT-3? Oh, so it's actually like more than just listening to chat messages. You've got an AI chatting with you. Oh, that's cool. That sounds pretty fun. All right. Well, if that sounds interesting to you, I would highly recommend going and following Pope for the next time they stream. Oh, okay. Jim FYYC. Okay, got it. So I'll try to remember just Jim. All right. So what I'm working on is I'm working on a Rust-based sort of like web to-do application, and we've got. I mean, it doesn't really look too much like a web app right this second. Because we're just playing around with components right now. And technically, we're playing around with state. So if you're familiar with web development, a lot of state libraries out there, like, for example, Redux, are super popular to use. And we're trying to figure out which one we want to go with. So we spent a majority of the stream working on something called Yewdux. And now we're taking a look at one called Bounce. The Bounce one seems to work with functional components, whereas Yewdux really required us to, not in home here, but use a struct component, which is sort of like the equivalent of a class component in React. So I'm looking forward to Bounce's like nicer use, because we can use a hook, which should be similar to, if you're familiar with React. You appreciate the one-screen front-end, so you don't have to do it. I enjoy it, but I also think I enjoy it because I enjoy the end result more than the actual doing of it. So, like, whatever I do, as long as it's solving problems for people, I'm okay and I'm happy. Okay, so I want to use the okay, so it's the text input equals. We're going to use the use atom. We have to tell it the type. So that's going to be this text input from Bounce. And then I want to clone it. That gives us this use atom handle. Well, thank you again, Pope, for the raid. And then have a great rest of your Sunday. I did not develop that. No, that's developed by I should never forget his Twitch username. Griffin. Let me get the exact. I hope he's not actually watching, because then that would make it so much more sad. CM Griffin. CM Griffin. So it's at CM Griffin. Oh, I can't actually. Oh, there it is. So that is the person who developed this. I'm using it. It is pretty nice. It's pretty awesome. And then the other overlay, which is the right? Wait, can you not see my mouse? I'm looking at my OBS preview and I don't see my mouse. But all the little things flying around, like around that, that is a. Oh, I actually have it over here. That is this thing. I have a. It's created in GGEZ in Rust, and it's a flocking simulation. It's kind of fun. My VS Code theme, what am I using? It's been a while since I've set that up. Oh, Night Owl. I'm using Night Owl by Sarah Drasner. You're gonna cook alligator for dinner. I have never had that. Although there is a place that sells those in like burger form, but I don't think I've ever had that. Okay, so we get this text input. So now I think I can use that here. So let's do a P. And I'm gonna do text input dot inner. I think it's that. No, it's not that. Come on, give me the error. Cannot move out of dereferences of that. Okay. I don't want to own it. Give me a reference to it. Okay, so I don't have a button. I need a button to get to that page. Let's see, back to home. Okay, so we're gonna do to internal. Oh, I need a route too. So use, what is this? Actually, this will be, I'll be able to do this here. Hat slash bounce. Bounce. What? No, not whatever you did. No. Oh. Rust analyzer. Rust analyzer. Give me the bounce. Do I have to save it first? Oh, Rust analyzer. I'm so sad. Okay, bounce. You're gonna be HTML. And so here I want to do home with bounce. Yeah, just like that. And can you pull this in? No, I have to pull it in myself. Guess it's the create store, right? Create store bounce. Oh wait, no, it's not that. It's the views. Views. One with bounce. One with bounce. Okay, so now you're happy here. Back to home. We now want to go to bounce. And so then I want to do the exact same thing here. Just take me home from the home with bounce. Okay, so link wrapper, we need to pull that in. That's a component, atom, link wrapper. We also need route. Take me home. Oh. Okay. So now we have Yewdux and Bounce. So I want to say hello. We'll go to Yewdux. That's still working. We go to Bounce. Hey, we get hello. So we come back. Put a bunch of other stuff in. Now we got that. Okay, so as we can see, setting up Bounce took 20 minutes. Setting up Yewdux took 3+ hours. Not to state that that's the only reason why I want to go with it, but that is a fairly big reason why I might want to like just use bounce instead. It feels really simple. There's some things that I might want to have to deal with it, so I might want to add some functions to create stores, or like I guess with this one, the idea is that you create a bunch of different stores together. We'll have to play around with that to sort of like see how we want to deal with it. So I'm like 90% sure I want to go with bounce, but I'm not like to that 100%. Yeah, this is definitely the way I want to do it. We'll have to play around with it a little bit more. So let's update our README. Okay, so that one, and then bounce. So either we have small stores based on single pieces, like portions, parts of data to store, or store the entire state, and that entire state gets replaced. I kind of like the idea of just the small stores, or like single state that holds everything, but everything is replaced when a change happens. I think that this one is the way to go with that. So in the bounce store, we would have a bunch of these. So just pub struct text input, pub struct whatever. So it wouldn't be text input right now. I don't have any context. That's why I'm just like calling it that. But it might be something like username, username and password, or like user information, something like that. Small pieces of data, and then there'd be a bunch of these, and then hey, I want to grab a little bit more of something. I just grab whatever I want with the use atom, which I like a lot more than the entire properties and context and everything else being passed down. And this works with the router really nicely. Okay, you watched most of those videos already, and you kind of get it a bit more. Awesome. Okay, great. Hopefully that's the beginning of your sort of journey into functional programming. It is fun, and it goes as deep as you want to go. I need to go grab some lunch for myself, so I'm gonna bring the stream to a close. I'm looking at who we can stream. People who I'm following who are live right now. Hero Dev is live. Hero is working on a C compiler for a GPU. Oh, and is taking a break. So that means that they'll be on for a while. So let me go ahead and set up a raid for that. I may not be back by the time Hero Dev is back. This is there. I think he's working in C and Vulkan. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that it was great for you. If you came in with the raid, thank you for staying. I am doing these streams, these long streams every Sunday, from around between 8 and 9 a.m. until around this time. And then on weekdays, I sometimes stream before I head to work for a shorter stream, like about an hour. and we would just continue working on this. We do a lot of Rust programming here, so if that's something you're interested in, I would love to have you hang out with me. So with that, I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!